before I get started, thank you, Roberto or SM. Thank you for being with me. I really, really appreciate it. So let's talk about the Barcelona Inter Milan. I really want to get your thoughts. It's really interesting because I thought it was a tale of two halves, but at the same time, I thought that Inter Milan played as good as they could. I thought they had a very interesting plan. They wanted to do the counterattacks. They gave two great punches in the first half, and I kind of was second guessing there myself for a minute. But then Barcelona came back and took their best stuff. And it kind of reminded me of that game against Atletico Madrid, how they played really great, were very composed, and then they kind of lasted in the end. But I thought the Atletico Madrid that night played as good as they could have played Barcelona and still could not beat them. And the same thing that gave me the vibes of Barcelona Real Madrid. Barcelona, I thought they were a little tired because they played the Copa del Rey against Real Madrid. I thought they were there to be had by Inter Milan, a team that's a team of warriors, if you for lack of a better word, and they were there to be had, and they gave it all their best. And at some point in that game, it was three shots, three goals, and the set pieces was going to be key for them, and it worked to perfection. And at the end of the day, they still didn't beat Barcelona and Lamine Yamal. We're going to be talking about him second topic, but at the end of the day, they could not beat us. So I want to get your thoughts. Should we be as a Barca nation? Should we be encouraged or discouraged?
Yeah, I got it. And thanks for having me. First of all, on the channel, I appreciate it. And yeah, for me, I think in terms of the result, I think if you got told that you were going to leave at home with a draw, I think you would be disappointed. But I think in terms of how the game kind of started out,
Exactly.
it's definitely not the worst result, right? I think yeah, I think I agree with what you said. I think it was very interesting. I think Inter set out to with a clear game plan, right? They wanted to hurt you guys, especially early, and that's where pretty much all the goals came, right? Was early, whether that be from set pieces or crosses into the box. They look dangerous. They tried to, not necessarily expose the high line. The way we've seen in the Liga, right? Some teams try to do it is they try to have runners come in from the midfield, running to try to catch the high line off guard. But the way Inter did it is, I mean, you saw it multiple times through the match. I think that's why it was interesting as a neutral to watch. I think both teams
Yeah.
built really well out of that pressure. I mean, both teams tried to immediately pressure out the ball, but man, when Inter were playing that ball out the back, they were 1, 2, 3, and they were already in your end. And you could see that at the beginning of the match, you guys were not ready for that.
First 20
You
minutes,
guys
we really suffer there.
yeah, you guys weren't ready for it, and so because of the way that the defense was kind of scrambling back, right? They weren't able to. The first goal came, Kunde did not get a correct clearance header. Nobody closed out the cross, and once you're in that, the way I call it is kind of a blender. Once too many people are moved out of position, the defense is kind of a blender, and that's when if you have people who are good early in the box, right, and if that is the game plan, then you are going to suffer. And unfortunately, you guys had to pay the price for that
And the
very early
funny
on in the
the
match.
funny thing on that play was, had Martinez not slip, that goal doesn't happen. So that's the thing. That's what I'm saying. Like, there was some luck to it. I know we got lucky on that third goal from Rafinha at the same time, but man, I just felt like there's a few things that Barcelona can tweak in the second game to kind of change things around. And honestly, for after the 20 minutes, the problem with Barcelona, in my opinion, is they just keep having a hard time starting the game, whether that's in the first half or the second half. That goal came in like basically right after the first half. I think it was like the 55th, or because Barcelona tied the game at like the 65 minutes, something like that. But that third goal from Dumfries that came in like I think it was like the 50th minute, something like that. I don't
Yeah.
even know if it was the 49th minute or something, but I thought that beginning of games, just Barcelona cannot get settled. And I remember because that's the cool thing about having content is like you can go back and see what you said at a certain point. So like one of the things I said to me that one of the keys of the game on the second leg in the semifinals for the Copa del Rey against Atletico, I said, the key of this game, this game for me, I thought it was not scoring early, not trying to try something crazy. I thought it was just taking control of the game, because I think that's the one thing that if Barcelona can just avoid getting scored on in the first couple of minutes of the game, I think they can take the game over with Frankie De Jong and Pedri Gonzalez, and just they just really just take over. And I think my thoughts on this game on the second leg is kind of like the same way I was thinking on that game, Atletico Madrid. Even and we were going at the Metropolitano as well. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think for me, I agree. In terms of the question, right? Should they be encouraged or discouraged? I think they should be more encouraged than they are discouraged, right? I think one of the things that you pointed out correctly is that I think a lot of what Inter did was a poor defensive work from Barca, which is a good thing, right? In the context of you can go on. I mean, now you have time, right? I'm assuming it's going to be full rotation for the weekend, so you can take your time on the training pitch and say, listen, if this is how Inter are going to hurt us, we have to be resolute. We have to be way better defensively. You have to be aware of the people in the box. You can't leave them alone. You can't give them any space. And so I think you can clamp down on your own errors because you know that your offensive output is going to be there. So if you limit the amount of clean chances that Inter get, then I think you can easily take the second leg. And so I think that's what the encouraging thing is, that's going to be something that's in your hands to fix, right? It's not like Inter were dominating, offensively, and you look lost in the midfield, you look lost in the no, it was poor defensive errors and, like you said, a little bit of luck, right? So I think you guys can control that in the second leg, and I agree with you. I think especially with the fact that Balde is going to be coming back, right?
Right.
Inter have lost Lautaro Martinez, and as much as I think a lot of Inter fans, rightfully criticize Lautaro at times, I think for me, and this is one of the things that I always said, I think when teams do not have an out and out nine, you will see them suffer. Because as much as people want to even make fun of Lewandowski, right? He's a grandpa, he's old, he's washed, whatever they want to say. I'm telling you, and I've seen it, from my own personal experience with my own team. When you do not have that out and out nine, that box presence, you suffer. Because I'm telling you right now, if Lewandowski was there, he would not have made the run. And I agree, he would not have made the run that Ferran Torres did for the second goal. But he would have
Mhm.
been on the end of those three Lamine crosses into the box that like nobody was there for, that just went harmlessly across there because
Exactly.
nobody was there to tap it in. And I think for Inter, they're gonna suffer because Lautaro is no longer there to do that for them.
It's funny you said that because I have to say, I do a series in my channel where it's like a tactical videos. I love doing that, and I love going back and rewatching, and I do it because of that series that I do, and I grossly underestimated the presence of Lewandowski. At points in the season where he was missing a lot of seaters, a lot of Barca fans, and myself included, were really frustrated with him. And we knew the numbers were there. He was scoring, whether that there were a couple of headers or pens or things like that. So like the numbers were there, and it was a little frustrating because it felt like he didn't have a good game, but he ended up scoring. So at the end of the day, he just gets it done. And I thought that not having him for this game specifically did hurt us because those CBs weren't really moving around. They just kept sitting and waiting for Ferran because he really wasn't attacking the spacing as much as he should have. I thought, even going back and rewatching it, I thought you made a really good point there, and I totally agree with you. I think that Ferran Torres, even though he gets the score, he gets on the scoring board. I still think that there was a lot of things that he could have done differently, but he just doesn't have the body to do it.
And I agree. I think this is where I've been speaking with Barcelona fans all season. And when Lewandowski was going through his poor run, when he was missing a lot of sitters, I told him this. I said, I think that at his age, I don't think Lewandowski is necessarily at the stage in his career where he can lead week in, week out in terms of La Liga. But I said in the bigger games this season, and I said this before all the Copas, before the Clásicos, I said, you are going to see him show up in the big moments. And lo and behold, he's done that. Look at the Clásico games, right? You look at the finals, he's shown up in one way or another. And for me, that's why I think one of the biggest things is if you can get Lewandowski back in that team, because it's a good thing that if you have Lewandowski there, right, in the first half,
Mhm.
if you need a different look, you bring on Ferran. I don't think that Ferran is a starter week in, week out kind of thing. I
Yeah.
think if as a second fiddle to Lewandowski, that's perfectly exactly where he needs to be.
Yeah, yeah, man. So I want to kind of switch the topic for a little bit so we can move on. So before I say I get your opinion on Lamin Jamal, I just want to say this real quick. So today I think it's 20 years mark when that pass from Ronaldinho to Lionel Messi. Did you see it on Twitter?
Yeah, I saw it. It was
It's
all over
going
the
on
timeline.
today.
Yeah.
And it's just fitting that it was today because we're going to be talking Lamin Jamal. So I remember that goal, and I was watching that game, and I thought that he was like this amazing player that was just coming out, and people were like, "Is there's no way he's gonna be better than Ronaldinho?" And people were like, "He's overhyped, he's overhyped." And there's this thing where like Madridistas versus like Barça fans, and they're always fighting on Twitter over players, right? And I remember that even the beginning of this season, people were still comparing Lamine Yamal to Endrick. And they were trying to build a case that, if Endrick had more minutes, if Endrick was playing and all that. But I remember my very first memory, because I saw when Lamine Jamal basically played his first game for Barca, right? I didn't think much of him. I just, even a couple of years ago, I saw that, like, I was telling my friends, like, this kid Lamine Jamal, like everything he gets, every time he gets the ball, like, there's always something gonna happen. There's always something's gonna happen. And I remember that I was just like, yeah, man, like I thought it was good, but I was just like, he's too young and never really wow me, for lack of a better word, right? And then I remember when that Euro Cup, and he was 16 years old, and people were bodying him, and like he was getting, like, even with those words with players from France and players from other players, and then he just kept backing it up. And after, when he scored that banger, I I that was like my moment where I said, like, holy crap, we can potentially have a player, like, could be a Messi, not like Messi, but a successor, somebody who could show up in big moments, somebody can show up when the rubber needs to meet the road. And it just seems like so fitting that today we're talking about Lamine Jamal and that kind of goal that gave the spark for Barcelona. Like, is there a moment where where something clicked with you with Lamine Jamal?
Yeah, I think for me, like I watched Barca last season, and I said, this, and I was saying like this kid has is gonna be something special. I remember arguing with a lot of people, because they were, they were telling me, no, like before he's the top dog, he needs the trophies, he needs this, he that, and I told them, and I said, listen, there are very few times in the sport when I've seen somebody that makes me feel a certain type of way. That you just know when you see them,
Right.
and and to a certain extent, I think a lot of people are caught on, they watch the game through a spreadsheet. They go on Foot Mob, they look at the numbers, they look at this. And that. I remember even this season. This
Yeah,
season, I think La Liga, Chiringuito, they were running this whole. How many games has it been since Lamine has scored in the league? What does that
that's
matter?
crazy. That was
If
crazy.
you watch the game, it
Yeah,
doesn't matter if he's not scoring,
yeah,
because you see how he impacts the game. And for me, like I already saw it last season, I think he could be something special. But I agree with you. I think this Euro, he kind of showed that there is, not only does he have, for me, the ability to get people out of their seats. Like when he has the ball, like people kind of lean forward a bit, that feeling when you see him. And for me, it was that Euros that cementified that,
yeah,
not only that, but he has the mentality. He has the mentality. I mean, you
yeah,
saw it even this game. Scores the goal, tells everybody, come on, get into it. We're still in it.
yeah.
This kid is 17 and he's
17
rallying the
years
team
old.
mentally. And for me, this is an amazing combination to have that mentality and that amount of talent at his age. And I don't think that this is something that anybody saw coming. I think that he's going to be of the type of ilk of player of a Neymar, of a Hazard,
Right,
of a Messi. When the game is going rough, when the team is losing, just give me the ball. That
right,
first half, it was basically just give him the ball and let him cook.
right,
and
yeah,
and
right.
17, bro, it's crazy.
The one thing that people, I don't know. I think it really helps if you play the sport, even if you play just as an amateur. I played as an amateur. I played for high school. I was a pretty good. I was a really good player in high school. Actually, I was like a player of the year type of thing. So I was nothing big, right? But one thing I remember that stuck with me when it comes to young players is like, I remember that I was like scoring a lot of goals for my team, and we went to the playoffs, but we barely made it to the playoffs. And we had to go play at a team in Portland, and it was like I think the school was called Jesuit or something like that, and it was supposed to be a
Mm,
private school, and with like scholarships and things like that, so they would get like all the good players, right? So we were like this team that was such an underdog, playing up against a team that was stacked, right? We had like one shot on goal on the whole game, and we lost like 6-0. And but I remember, this is what I want to tell you. It's like I remember that game, and like me, I was like one of the older players. I was a senior, telling my team like, we can beat this team, we can beat this team. And I remember like the first play of the game, man, I got a pass and I tried to control it, and this guy, man, just bodies me like wham, and I just like I went to the ground and I got up and I was like scared to death to like even face that guy in the next play because he was big, he was huge, and it just I know it's stupid that I'm saying this, but it's like, can you imagine being 16 years old and going out there and play with these freaking guys who are these fucking big legs and big bodies, and you're trying there to make something happen on the field? Do you understand the kind of difficulty that is, even after getting whacked on like the first second of the game? Like that's insane. Like, so I don't think people give credit to like that kind of aspect of mental aspect of the game.
Yeah, agreed 100%. It's one of those things where I mean, you look at like, and for me, I think the perfect example is Neymar throughout his entire career. Um, People were just going for his legs. Like they didn't even go for the ball. They're just hacking at his legs. They're just trying to foul
Hmm.
him. They're trying to get him riled up. They're trying to get in his head. And it's the same thing, for Lamine to be at such an age, where people are just going to foul him. Like at some point, and I think even, you saw Inzaghi said like, I had to just put three people on him. Like
Hmm.
that was pretty much the solution. It's gonna get to the point where people are just gonna start fouling him, trying to get into his head. But he already shows now at this age that they're not going to get into his head. I'm still going to play my game, right? I'm still going to dribble on you. I'm still going to try to take you on. And physically, you may out be stronger than me, you may be taller than me, but I'm already thinking ahead. And I think that's something that we saw early on when Messi was 19. He was already thinking three steps ahead of the defenders, right? I'm gonna get
Right.
by you with this move, and then the other person's gonna come here and buy you with this move. I mean, for me, that goal was exactly like that. He didn't need to do 3 million step overs, right? He
Right.
didn't need to do a rainbow flick like Vinny
Right.
tries every week in La Liga, right? It was just a quick dummy, just drop of the shoulder. The dude bit. He went into the box, positioned his body, feigned a bit, beautiful finish. And
He
that is
was.
it's the way that it looks so simple, but people,
Yeah.
like you said, if you haven't played, that's the most difficult thing to do on the fly is
And you
make
don't
everything
realize it.
seamless and simple, and people don't realize it.
Yeah, and I thought he was having his way throughout the whole game. Like they were double teaming him, but the problem was it's like, okay, you have two guys defending me, but I'm taking you all the way down the sideline, so you don't need two people. Like if I'm going straight to the line, that's how he was just being having his way. And when two people were going this way, he'll just cut outside and try to cross it, and it's just so unpredictable. And I think those are one of the great things about him. But all right,
Mhm.
so I want to get your thoughts on Inter Milan. I thought that they play
Mhm.
Barca as well as anybody has played them this year, and I thought Barcelona really struggled getting Inter Milan offside in this game. And I said it in the preview. It's like I'm expecting Inter Milan to be offside multiple. Probably I think I said 8 to 10 times, because there's a website where you can look at the strength and weaknesses, and one of the weaknesses from Inter Milan is staying on side. So I was like, this is a recipe for disaster. But to my surprise, they did a great job. So do you think that's going to keep working, and do you think that's a difference in the second leg?
I mean, one thing that you can say about this Inter team is that they're very well trained, right? Inter don't have a lot of money in the transfer market. They've been moving very smart, and you got to give credit to Inzaghi in terms of how he sets the team up. And I think the way that they did it differently, to a Real Madrid or to other teams in Liga that have frustrated me, right? Because to be a low block, you cannot fall into the trap of having your forward line like try to do the thing where they're just like trying to see who goes first and try to, because you're just gonna fail. Barcelona has shown this season. I think they're like hundreds ahead of any other team in terms of catching teams offside,
Yeah.
in all the top five leagues, and so you're not going to beat them in that type of way. And I think what Inter, like what I was saying, what they were doing well is they were catching you with runners. They were trying to switch the ball and see if they could catch you on that type of offside trap, right? If they could win against you on that one, and I think if they have the possibility to, I think what kills me, and I think what's going to kill them is I don't see Barca making the same errors that they did this game, because I think Flick has shown himself to be a very he doesn't make the same mistakes twice, and that's something
Especially
that I'll
this,
give Flick.
especially the second as another game with the same team like he did against Atletico. Atletico scored 4 goals on Barca at the Montjuic, and as a
Yep.
matter of fact, that was the first time Barca allowed 4 goals in a game this season, and
Mm-hmm.
Inter was the second. And now Hansi Flick gets a whole week to prepare for Inter after seeing them at the Montjuic. even if it's at the Giuseppe Meazza, like we did against at the Metropolitano.
Yeah.
And the one thing that's really gets me really confident about this Barca team, and I think it's really goes unnoticed for whatever reason, it's just that we have three players that are basically playing Ballon d'Or type seasons, and I don't think there's another team out there right now that you can say that. And now that I mentioned that, like in your opinion, if it was if everything was tied as far as voters and all that, who would you give the Ballon d'Or if it was just a tie and then you had to decide who wins the Ballon d'Or, and if it was Pedri, it was Rafinha, and Lamine Yamal?
For me personally, the way that I look at the Ballon d'Or, right? I think obviously the way that they vote it is they look a lot more at the team trophy. So for me, the Ballon d'Or should always be about who has been the best individual player of that
Hmm.
season, of that year. And for me, I
Hmm.
think there's no doubt about it, Lamine Yamal. And I mean, for me, one of the biggest proof of that is you look at that run that Barcelona had when Lamine Yamal could not play. It was sad. Bro. I remember watching those games and I'm like, what happened to the attack? I'm like,
Hmm.
there's no way the teenager's gone and everybody else just ceases to function. But it looked like that at times. No,
Yeah.
struggling to find solutions to teams, struggling to find creativity at times. And I think, if Rafinha has a reason to be in the Ballon d'Or conversation, a lot of that is due to Lamine Yamal. Let's be quite
Hmm.
honest. The kid
Yeah.
has 44 assists. It's an insane number.
Yeah.
And I think Rafinha as well in terms of the Ballon d'Or. I think this performance from him was not great, man. I
Well,
mean, he needed to show up.
exactly, but he did show up in the second half. That's the thing.
Yes.
So the numbers are there. Like I saw this stat from Stat Muse, and it says that Rafinha is the first in assist, the first in GAs, the first in big chances created, second in goals, and second in chances created. And his career has been so dominant in the UCL. So the
Yeah.
numbers are there. That's the thing with Rafinha, though. Like it's hard to argue against these numbers, but
Mhm.
like I said, when things need to happen, when you need a spark, it's hard for Rafinha to perform under those moments. Now, if you get a spark like we did in that game with Inter Milan, he's a player that can contribute and do get things done for you at a certain moment. And it's funny, like I think there's no other team right now that would have three players that can potentially win the Ballon d'Or. And to me, I think it's also Lamine Yamal. And it's funny because I predicted that Lamine Yamal is going to be the fastest player. I think this was on TikTok because I started this YouTube thing like 4 months ago, but I've been doing TikTok for a while.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I said that Lamine Yamal. I said it at the gala where I think somebody said that where whether Vinicius didn't win it, where Rodri won it. I can't remember what kind of award that Lamine Yamal won that
It
day,
was
but
the yeah, it was it the young boy, I think something like
or
that.
something like that. But
Yeah.
somebody said that R9 was the youngest player to win a Ballon d'Or, and he was 19. And I said,
Mhm.
hold on. So Lamine Yamal gets the 17 years old season and gets the 18 years old season. And I went on and said that Lamine Yamal will be the youngest player to ever win a Ballon d'Or, and like four or five people on my comments like calling me stupid, calling me like literally, and I'm like, it's he's got like 2 3 years, 2 3 seasons to win it, and as you can see, like if he scores two goals next week, and then if he scores in the final, like there's no international tournaments, it's gonna be hard not to give it to unless the gala doesn't want to give it to
And it's
such a young player, then they
yeah,
may not do it. But he
it's one of those things as well where they tell the journalists, you're not only supposed to think of this season, but in their mind they're going to think about his Euros performance, right? They're
yeah.
going to have that in their minds. They tell you don't look at this and look at that. And I think with the way that he's performing, and I think we're also going to have, I think before the voting, if I'm not mistaken, we're also going to have the what is it called, the Nations Cup? I think that's what they call it, right?
Yeah,
Which Spain is most
Nations
likely
League,
reaching the final, the Nations League. Yeah, right. I think Spain is most likely reaching that final as well, up against France, and I think Yamal will perform that game as well. That's going to be heavy on their minds as well.
and the Finalissima. They're gonna play the
Yep.
Argentina this year, right? They're
Yeah,
supposed
they're
to
gonna play
play
Argentina.
Argentina
Yep.
so that's all. Can you imagine if he scores in that game too? Like, I mean, he's gonna get plenty of opportunities here, but who knows, man? But I want to get before we switch this topic. I want to get your prediction. I'll give you mine real quick. I think
Yeah.
that Barca goes and win by at least a goal marching. Obviously, you have to win at least by a goal, but I think it's going to be something where Barca comes out and control the game. Actually, one of the things that I saw from the first game is that Barca really controlled the midfield, and I thought they were going to have a little bit of a hard time. I thought that Inter would have more control in that game. I thought it would be like more of a like 40-60, but the game was really dominant. It was like Barca had the ball for like 73, 75%. I think it was even more. And I don't I think Barca will come out in control and just try to win by like a goal or two and not make it to what happened at the Montjuic, where it was just like a punch for punch. And I think that, Flick will make adjustments. And I'm just gonna go ahead and say it's gonna be a 2-0.
Yeah. For me, I think the goal difference is the same. I think it's gonna probably be a 3-1.
Hmm.
I think maybe the first half ends like a 1-1, but then Barca come out in that second half, and again, it is one of the things that you guys have in benefit is this weekend you guys are playing Valladolid, the
Hmm.
worst team in La Liga.
That's a big
Like,
advantage. Big.
the B team needs to win against Valladolid. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts.
Yeah.
B team needs to beat them. You can rest pretty much everybody. And Inter, they don't have that, dude. They do not have that courtesy.
No, they're on. They're on a
They're dudes.
big
They need
come.
to win. They
Yeah.
need to win, or else the league is gone. Conte's taking it. Napoli's running away with it if they don't
Napoli,
win.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah, yeah, yeah.
they cannot
So,
rest the same with you guys. Yeah.
so that's a good thing. Yeah. So I want to switch to the PSG Arsenal series for just a couple minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna lie. I thought the Barca would beat PSG. Um, Basically the whole season, I thought Barca's better. Barca's better. But I'm not gonna lie. The first half of that game against Arsenal,
Mm-hmm.
man, they were flying, dude. They were flying on all, they were hitting on all cylinders, and everybody runs on this team. Everybody's good. The Neves, the Dues, the Kvaratskhelia making
Technical
things
team, very
happen,
technical
dude.
team.
And
Yeah.
that false nine is dirty, man. That false nine, I'm not gonna lie, but I thought that this team would look really, really good. Had Arsenal not been one of the best teams in that always take control of games. They're one of the most organized teams you'll ever see, like especially in this Champions League. And
Yeah.
had not been for that, I mean, PSG is running away with this. The only bad thing I've seen about PSG that I can say, nitpicking, is that they don't finish chances as good as they should. They miss a lot of chances. But
Mm-hmm.
I am having a potential final between PSG and Barca. I'm having second thoughts, man. I'm not going to lie. I'm having second thoughts. What are your thoughts on the series, and do you think Barca can beat PSG?
Yeah. So for me, I think PSG is, yeah, definitely the worst case scenario.
Yeah,
Because I think with the offense that you guys have, you guys could easily run over Arsenal. And that's just a fact of the matter. I don't think they have anybody. I mean, you look at what Kvaratskhelia was doing, right? There's nobody on that Arsenal team who can defend Lamine Yamal. I mean, Inter were, on track, quote unquote, up until this game to potentially beat Chelsea's defensive record in the when we
right.
won the UCL, and that got blown out the water. And so I
Yeah,
don't see, and if Inter with their defensive record in the UCL right now, couldn't handle Lamine Yamal, I don't know if Arsenal could handle it. And in terms of the tie, I think one of the things that I agree, I think that as a team, as a unit, PSG are so solid, man. Such a technical team, a lot of
yeah.
quality in that midfield. It's gonna
John
be
Neves, man,
such,
that
man.
kid.
John Evans, a special kid, man. And you think like, man, and this is one of the things I tell people. People are like, oh, are they physical enough? Is he tall enough for the Premier League? That kid is 5'6", man. That kid is 5'6". He did not look like it.
And the funny thing is, Vitinha wins the man of the match on a game where Joao Neves played amazing, Dembele played
Robbed
amazing,
them, bro.
Kvaratskhelia played amazing. But my point is, you can pick 3, 4 players in this team that could have won it, and obviously somebody has to win it. So if they want to give it to
They all
Vitinha,
have their arguments. They all have their arguments. I hear it. Yeah.
and that's the thing. Like normally when Barca plays really well, there's sometimes you can give it to Lamine Yamal, the Pedri,
Mm,
Rafinha, and you don't even know who is going to. And PSG is the only other team that I feel like it's the same thing with Barca. But I did tell my friend yesterday. I said they left Arsenal alive, and it's just one goal. I know it's back in friends, and I know they're a great team and whatever, but it's just a goal. It's just a goal, and that series is not over. We can't pretend like Arsenal is already eliminated. Like it's
No,
not
no, no.
a foregone conclusion that PSG will go through. But ultimately, I think that if that 2006 final repeats, then Barca should run away with this thing. But we've been getting too lucky in the Champions League. I do think that Barca goes through, and I do think that
Hmm.
PSG goes through, and ultimately it's going to be like a freaking coin flip. It's
Yeah,
just
it's gonna
one
be a
game.
shootout, man. It's gonna be a shootout.
Yeah, it's just one game. But I did see that like if Barca gets to the end of the season without winning La Liga, then that's a problem because they have
Yes,
to play. I think they have to play. I think it's 5 or 4 days before the Champions League final,
but this is what I'll say about
and
that
they have
though.
to play Bilbao, and they have to play Bilbao. So if Madrid can keep it close, and if they win the Clásico, Barca can be in a dogfight before the
But
UCL
but this is what
final.
I'll say about this though, right? And this is why it's gonna be very important to watch this weekend, right? Because Real Madrid are gonna go up against Celta Vigo,
Yeah,
right? And this is this current situation at the moment. If they do not win that game, if they lose or draw it, then you guys are obviously beating Valladolid, right?
yeah,
Then if you guys beat them in El Clasico, it's done. You win it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And dude, winning it, first of all, winning it at it, come on,
And
man.
it's
In front of Madrid, winning
it
the
would be
league in front of Madrid in the Clasico,
it
like
just
you cannot slap them anymore in the face. That's a
no.
disaster season for them. That's
And it's
awful.
so stupid, unbelievably stupid that it's like somebody wrote a script where Barca beats Real Madrid in the Super Cup, Barca beats Real Madrid in the Copa del Rey, and then they go out and win a Clásico.
Dude, the global score right now, I think it's like 12-3. You guys have not only beat them, you've
Yeah,
absolutely
dominant.
destroyed them. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 and that's crazy. Like that's like it's gonna feel
Hmm.
like we defeated Real Madrid in 3 different finals. That's really what's
They can
kind of
lay a hand on you. Yeah, pretty much.
yeah. So now speaking of Real Madrid, like I'll just give a few seconds. Like
Yeah.
uh, I just want to get your thoughts real quick. Like, is Real Madrid broke or is Real Madrid? What are things happening over there? Like, what? I just feels
Yeah.
like they're in. They're not. They're always this like Florentino Perez, right? They're so in control. They are so poised. They're so good at in the office. That throughout the years they've always been really good, but now it's like
Hmm.
Ancelotti was leaving, now he's not leaving, now they don't want to pay him and they don't want to pay for
Hmm.
players. Trent Alexander-Arnold was a player that they should have brought a couple of seasons ago, and they tried to get him from Liverpool for cheap. Liverpool was like, I'm not selling it. Same thing with Mbappe. They tried to get him, and PSG said it's the price is the price, and they try to offer like a bogus something just to show Mbappe that they were interested, and PSG denied it. So I guess now there was a story that Xavi Alonso was basically going to Real Madrid, but I think Leverkusen wants to get compensated, and Real Madrid doesn't want to pay it. There's so much turmoil right now with Real Madrid. Like, what do you think is going on?
Yeah. So I think it's maybe there's like three things going on. For me, when I look at the the players this season, and I think this is a accumulation of not doing what they need to do in the transfer market for a couple years now, right? You look at
Mhm.
that back line, dude, and this is what I'm saying, that I do believe that there's a chance that they could not win against Celta Vigo. Rudiger is out now, and it's
Yeah,
been confirmed, by the way, that he has been playing through excruciating pain and been
yeah.
taking painkillers for 6 months
There was a
minimum.
video of him like literally crying or complaining or screaming like from pain
Yeah,
at the Classical.
exactly. And again, then you look at Ancelotti, you look at the club, and you're saying, okay, if the reports are true, and even though he not even reports, he put it on his Instagram post. I've been playing through pain for like 6 months minimum. That means that this happened when he was with Germany, right? Pretty much.
Yeah.
And from since he came back into the start of the season, you knew that he had pain, and you kept playing him again and again and again. Alaba is pretty much out. They confirmed that, right? Dude, that backline is completely decimated, and they don't have any good backups, and that is on them
Mhm.
not moving smart in the transfer market. You look at the fact that Tony Cruz left; they have zero replacement for Tony Cruz, and
Mhm.
this is to every Real Madrid fan who tried to convince me that Bellingham has as much creativity as Pedri. How's that going for you guys? How's
Exactly.
that going for you guys? There is nobody in that midfield who can do what Tony Cruz did. And
No.
That is, and you guys didn't replace that, and that's why obviously you see all the Real Madrid fans, they want Enzo Fernandez, right? They're like, he's the solution. You guys don't have the money, and this is what I'm telling them. And this gets to my second point, right? I think that the investment that they put down on that stadium is holding them back an immense amount.
Yeah.
And they were seriously relying on everybody staying fit, right? And they were relying on Mbappe to carry them.
Yeah.
Because the amount of compensation that they paid him up front was a ludicrous amount. That was pretty much the entire transfer window. That's it. They had no more money. And I think people are underestimating how much it does cost to build a new stadium and still be competitive. And there's a reason why Barcelona put so much emphasis on La Masia and, you know, and making sure that La Masia was able to provide them with what they needed in this era of moving to the new stadium. Madrid did not do that.
To go get a Lamine Yamal and a Pedri right now on the market.
Dude, in this market right now, bro, like it's impossible. I mean, you look at what players are going for right now. Lamine is like a 200 million player.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's what I'm looking at. I do think that behind the scenes, I think that the stadium was too much money for them, and that Mbappe, they believe that the 150 million that they gave him pretty much upfront was going to be enough to keep the team competitive for the years to come. And now they see the team falling apart. They do not have the money. The payments that are due on the $1 billion stadium, pretty much, they are not making the money that they need to because there's been noise complaints. I don't know if you heard about that as well.
Yeah.
Where people around the stadium are saying, you know, even with the roof closed, it is too loud. And so they've been limited in terms of what events they can have. And it seems like it's all unraveling financially. And Perez is looking at all these free agent opportunities, Trent, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know if this can be fixed in the transfer window. I don't think Madrid are broke. My issue is they have the money. They just can't spend it because all of their finances are currently tied up on repaying what they owe on the stadium.
Yeah, that's the thing, man. And you made a great point as far as the Tony Cruz thing. So I want to get your thoughts because I gotta be honest. I know that people joke about Ancelotti and people say it's done, it's done, it's done. And it might be true. It might be true that Ancelotti should be sacked. But what if I tell you? What if I told you? What if you were Ancelotti and I'm telling you, okay, Militao is gonna get injured. Alaba's gonna get injured. You're gonna ask for CBs. You're not gonna get him. You're gonna have to deal with Asensio. You're gonna have to deal with Lucas Vasquez because Carvajal is injured. We're not gonna
Courtois
give
was
you.
injured.
We're not. Yeah, Courtois. We're not gonna give you a replacement for Tony Cruz. You're gonna have to plug in an all Lucas Modric or try to bring in somebody else. And I think his biggest mistake was not putting Arda Güler. And now we can see at the end of the season all the things that he could have done for them throughout the whole season that he missed. And I think that his biggest blow, I think it might be just because of that reason. But
yes,
if I tell you that instead of, and this was noted, that he asked for Harry Kane when Joselu left. So you ask for Harry Kane, they bring you Mbappe, a player who is not a number 9. And now you have to figure out, because you've been figuring out what to do with Rodrigo, who's been playing on the right where he should be playing on the left, because Vinicius a left winger too, and now they're bringing you another left winger. So now you have to figure all this crap out. And you didn't have a good season because even Rudiger got injured. And there's so many things that you can point in this Real Madrid team. And at the end of the day, it comes across to me that it's a little unfair and it's a little weird that Real Madrid is just sacking him after everything that he has done. To me, Xavi Alonso is not a foregone conclusion that he can win a Champions League. Ancelotti is. So all of a sudden, did Ancelotti just forgot how to coach? I just don't believe that. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So in terms of Ancelotti, I do think that he was dealt a very rough hand. This injury with seasons and in terms of the transfer window, because you saw even last season what was lacking in that Madrid squad, and all you pretty much get is Mbappe. So now you have 3 left-sided players in the attack, which everybody was saying like it's going to be unbalanced, right? And then you add on to that, that pretty much Vinny has had an awful downturn in form, which has not helped the team. You add on the injuries, and I see how Ancelotti would struggle to try to piece it together. The one thing I will say is 2 things, actually. One, I agree with you on the Güler point. I think that he should have been relying. I think there's been games when he has just been very stubborn in terms of,
Endrick too. Endrick is a top scorer in the Copa del Rey. And
I was just about to say, like, there are moments, especially when Mbappe was going through that bad run, where people kept saying, why are you continuing to stick with the same? Why are you continuing to do this again and again? And that's where I do think that Ancelotti needs to hold a bit of blame for not utilizing the bench, right? Because I agree that they're lacking in squad depth, they're lacking in certain positions, but that doesn't mean that there's no solutions. And for me, one of the biggest issues with Real Madrid this season, watching their games, is the fact that in that midfield there isn't a creator, there isn't a deep line playmaker, right? However, if you had Arda Güler, you have Bellingham, and you have Valverde, you have two basically enforcers right there that will be able to do a lot of the dirty work for Arda Güler, so he can find space and time in that midfield, to make a play, to find a pass, and he's shown himself to be capable of that. And that is on Ancelotti for not utilizing that this season.
He was a problem in that Clásico in the Copa del Rey. He was a
Yes,
big
but
problem.
he's been a problem this season anytime that he's actually been subbed on. And again, Endrick relegated to basically pity minutes in the cups, and that's not good enough. When you see the way that Mbappe was playing, there are moments where he needed to be benched. Man, he was not playing well. And for me, like, that's what Ancelotti needs to be held accountable for. Now, the second question is that enough for him to be sacked? Right? When you weigh every factor, is that enough?
To me, it's not.
For me, what I truly think it is, though, is that this season, and you know how Madrid fans are, there needs to be a scapegoat.
Yeah.
There needs to be a scapegoat. Somebody's head needs to roll, right? They're about to go. And again, if the season ends and they are trophyless, because again, I don't care about what you won at the start of the season. You won those because of what you did last season. So in my mind, those don't count, right?
Yeah.
Because they're going to say, oh, we won stuff. I don't count those, respectfully, right? I know they're going to say we won. I don't count those. So based on this season, they're about to go trophyless and potentially are facing losing to Barcelona at every single instance and watching them win a treble on their head top, potentially watching them win the league in front of them. Yeah. Somebody's head needs to roll. And unfortunately, right, they can't get rid of Mbappe. They can't get rid of Vinny, right? Again, word on the street is Rodrigo wants to leave. So again, that adds in even more turmoil in terms of where the team is at right now. And he might need to leave because if they can't afford stuff and they need to make signings for the team, Valverde's not leaving, Bellingham's not leaving, right? The backline is old. So their only real solution is, again, probably selling Rodrigo to the highest bidder and using that money to be able to get other players. But I think Ancelotti's, unfortunately, his head is on the chopping block. He's the one who's gonna pay for what has happened this season. Even though I agree with you, I don't think that in totality, this season is all on him. And with all of, when you weigh the things that were in his control and the things that were not in his control, the things that were not in his control hindered the season way more than what was in his control.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And then another elephant in the room in this team right now is that you brought in an Mbappe who's making a lot more money than Jude Bellingham, than Vinicius Jr. And word on the street is that that's not sitting well going into next season. These players are like, he's not gonna make two tries as I'm making. Like, I'm running the field. Like, if I'm Jude Bellingham, you're not gonna be happy and saying like, are you watching all the defensive plays that I'm making, all the playmaking that I'm doing? Like, I'm not playing for less money. And then now Vinicius Jr. is, working on his deal as well, where he's leaving or he's staying. And like, now I guess he's staying. And I think they have a big problem. Not only just the other stuff that's happening, but the other players are now saying the same thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree. I think when I think it was announced, I think, a while ago, Vinny, the contract is almost there, but I don't know that we've gotten confirmation on that. And I agree with you. From what it seems like Vinny's saying, like, listen, I want to be paid a lot more than I am now, right? If Mbappe's gonna be paid this. And I think you look at somebody, and I agree with you completely, like, you look at somebody like Valverde, right? Where you're basically, you've been running to the ground this season. And you see that Mbappe's getting not only, the wages weekly, right? But he got a massive sign-on bonus. Like, all the money that they pretty much would have paid PSG for him, they just gave to him straight up.
Yeah.
And like, there's no way that's that well with the other players, especially considering his performances this season. Again, the missed penalties, the performances in El Clásico. They just, whether or not you want to say, oh, maybe he had a decent game, against a Barça in the Copa, that doesn't erase the rest of the season, right? He's just not been good enough. Yeah. And I agree with you. I think that the team dynamic has been completely thrown into whack. And at least I did. I told Madrid fans, you are not going to buy Mbappe, bring him into the team, and think that the chemistry or the locker room is not going to be thrown off. Because you look at, you even look at the clips of Luis Enrique at PSG telling him, listen, you look at what Michael Jordan was doing. He was doing offense and defense. You need to do that. You need to be the one person. You need to set an example. But Mbappe doesn't do that. You look at how much better PSG looked without Mbappe in the team. Yeah. And you can kind of see the type of presence that he was in the team and in the locker room, where he wanted to be focused on him. I am the star player. I am the one who wants to end the play. and that doesn't sit right with everybody else. And you saw that you saw that this season. I mean, dude, Madrid at some, Barcelona stumbled, Madrid took advantage, and then they couldn't hold on to that.
Yeah.
That is not what you would expect from a Madrid team. You know, when Barcelona stumble, a Madrid team, you would expect them to hold on. They crumbled as well, and it's only gotten worse since then.
Yeah.
I think for me personally, I think the streets want to see a PSG Barca final. I think you personally you don't want to see that, but I mean that's what we want to see. And listen, I'm here for it. I think the best possible thing, for me personally, is like I want to see Lamine Yamal have the career that I want him to have. I think one of the biggest things, at least for me growing up in my childhood, is I wanted to see Neymar reach the heights. Obviously, he didn't. He left
Yeah.
Barca. But I hope I really believe that Lamine Yamal is going to have the career that I believe that Neymar is going to have, and so that's something that I really look forward to. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I do want Barcelona to go through to the final, and I do want them to play PSG because there's a lot of talk on the street, on Twitter, on X that
Hmm.
Barca has had an easy run, so it would taste a lot more, a lot better if we beat PSG in that final. So there
Yeah.
cannot say anything else. If we beat that team that day and win the Champions
Hmm.
League, that is just gonna add. It's gonna feel twice as better. Like if
Yeah.
even if we beat Arsenal in a scenario like that. So, but yeah, man. Well, thank you so much for making this video with me. I really appreciate your time, and I really appreciate you being here. And I hope we can do this again.
Yeah. Of course, man. Appreciate it.